El Cholo, the most brutally tortured cartel boss in Mexican history, was found wrapped in plastic on a park bench, eyes gouged out, toes cut from his feet, burns across his body. Carlos Enrique Sanchez Martinez, El Cholo, was a senior CJNG member who made one catastrophic decision. He broke away and built his own cartel directly inside El Mencho's territory. El Mencho didn't send a warning, he sent a team. El Cholo was captured, tortured for hours while still alive, wrapped tightly in plastic, and left sitting upright on a public park bench in Guadalajara for the whole city to find. Amado Carrillo Fuentes, the most powerful drug lord in the world, paid doctors to cut off his own face and died on the table. Amado Carrillo Fuentes, worth $25 billion, controlled more cocaine than any man alive, then secretly checked into a Mexico City clinic for full facial reconstruction surgery to vanish forever. He never woke up. A fatal dose of Dormicum ended it on the operating table. Months later, the two surgeons who performed the procedure were found stuffed inside concrete-filled steel drums on a roadside. Fingernails ripped out, bodies burned. The third doctor was never found at all. Nazario Moreno, El Chayo, the cartel boss who told his followers he was a saint sent by God, managed to die twice. Nazario Moreno Gonzalez wrote his own gospel, distributed it across Michoacán, and convinced thousands he carried a divine mission. In 2010, Mexican forces announced he was killed in a massive gunfight. His followers held public mourning ceremonies. Then he reappeared, alive, still commanding, using his own reported death as proof of sainthood. It took a second military operation in March 2014 to finally put El Chayo down for real. Even then, people hesitated to believe it was truly over. Pablo Escobar, the richest criminal in history, worth $30 billion, died barefoot in his pajamas, shot through the ear on a rooftop. Pablo Escobar, at his peak, controlled 80% of the world's cocaine. He bribed presidents, bombed planes, and ran Colombia from the shadows for over a decade. Then his allies abandoned him, his money dried up, and 499 days of relentless hunting closed in around him. On December 2, 1993, they found him sprinting across a rooftop in residential Medellin. Shot in the leg, the torso, then through the ear. The most powerful criminal who ever lived died with no shoes on. Arturo Beltran Leyva, the cartel boss who fought the Mexican Navy for 2 hours straight, died with a golden gun still in his hand and dollar bills scattered across his body. Arturo Beltran Leyva, El Barbas, was the boss of bosses, so deeply connected inside the Mexican government that a senior intelligence official was on his personal payroll. On December 16, 2009, Navy Special Forces tracked him to a luxury apartment in Cuernavaca. He didn't surrender. He fought back with grenades and machine guns for 2 full hours. When they finally reached him, he was dead. Golden gun still gripped tight. Cash scattered all around him. Heriberto Lazcano, the founder of the most feared cartel in Mexico, was killed in a shootout. Then his own men stormed the funeral home, stole his body, and vanished into the night. Nobody has found him since. Heriberto Lazcano built Los Zetas from a small group of corrupt military deserters into the most brutal criminal organization Mexico had ever seen. On October 7, 2012, Navy Marines caught up with El Lazca near Sabinas, Coahuila, not during some grand military operation, but at a casual Sunday baseball game. He pulled a weapon. They killed him on the spot. The government had the body, the fingerprints, the photographs. Then hours later, a convoy of armed men stormed the funeral home, loaded the corpse into a vehicle, and disappeared. To this day, Heriberto Lazcano has never been recovered. 3 fingerprints and a few photographs are all that remains. El Mencho. When this cartel boss died, his followers launched coordinated attacks across 20 Mexican states in a single night, burning vehicles, blocking highways, and firing on military positions simultaneously. Building CJNG from nothing into the most powerful drug cartel on the planet took Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes less than a decade. El Mencho was so deeply feared that for years the Mexican and American governments offered tens of millions of dollars for information, leading to his capture. On February 22, 2026, Mexican armed forces finally tracked him down in Jalisco and killed him in a military operation. Within hours, CJNG operatives across the country activated simultaneously. Narco blockades, armed attacks, burning trucks on major roads in city after city across 20 states. The man was dead. His organization responded like a machine that had been programmed to detonate the moment he stopped breathing. Gonzalo Rodriguez Gacha, one of the most powerful cocaine barons in Colombia, was shot dead in the same field as his own 17-year-old son on the same afternoon. Jose Gonzalo Rodriguez Gacha, El Mexicano, was Pablo Escobar's most trusted partner inside the Medellin cartel, the man responsible for building their most violent operations across Colombia. On December 15, 1989, Colombian police and military forces tracked him down to a ranch near the port city of Coveñas on the Atlantic coast. The firefight was short. When it was over, El Mexicano was dead. So was his teenage son Freddy, who had been fighting alongside him. 15 bodyguards died in that same field that same afternoon. A father and his son, wiped out together in one operation, surrounded by the men who had sworn to protect them. Not a single one of them walked away. Ramon Arellano Felix, one of the most feared and violent cartel bosses in all of Mexico, a man personally responsible for hundreds of murders, was killed at a routine traffic stop by a police officer who had absolutely no idea who he was. Ramon Arellano Felix ran the Arellano Felix organization out of Tijuana and had spent years terrorizing rivals, killing judges, and bribing entire police forces into submission. On February 10, 2002, a state police officer named Ángel Antonio Arias Torres pulled over a vehicle in Mazatlan for a routine traffic violation. Ramon was inside. He drew his weapon and shot the officer twice in the chest. The officer fired back before he fell. That single return shot killed Ramon Arellano Felix on the spot. A man who had survived cartel wars, assassinations, and federal operations for years was taken out by a traffic cop on an ordinary street. Manuel Salcido Uzeta, El Cochiloco. When police arrived at the scene where this cartel boss had been killed, nobody could touch the body. His dead hand was still gripping a live grenade, and the bomb squad had to be called before anyone could get close. Manuel Salcido Uzeta earned the nickname El Cochiloco, the crazy pig, not as an insult but as a reputation. He was one of the original Guadalajara cartel's most feared operators, a man known for unpredictable and savage violence. On October 9, 1991, Colombian traffickers ambushed him in Zapopan, Jalisco, payback for stealing 8 tons of their cocaine. He was hit more than 50 times. When the shooting stopped and authorities moved in, they found El Cochiloco exactly as he had died, hand locked around an unpinned grenade, body riddled with bullets, impossible to approach until the bomb disposal team arrived and pried it from his grip. Rodolfo Carrillo Fuentes. This cartel boss was shot dead walking out of a cinema with his wife, and the reason it happened was because he once refused to shake El Chapo's hand. Rodolfo Carrillo Fuentes was a senior figure in the Juarez cartel, the brother of its leader, and a man with enough power to feel untouchable. At some point he crossed paths with Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and declined to shake his hand, a gesture that, in that world, meant only one thing. El Chapo didn't forget it. On September 11, 2004, as Rodolfo walked out of a cinema complex in Culiacan with his wife, Sinaloa cartel gunmen were waiting. Both Rodolfo and his wife were killed at the entrance. Testified openly at El Chapo's 2018 federal trial in New York, the killing became one of the most chilling examples of how little it took to sign your own death sentence in that world. Efraín Teodoro Torres, Z14, one of the original founders of Los Zetas, the cartel that turned Mexico into a war zone, was betrayed and sold out by members of his own organization for money. Efraín Teodoro Torres wasn't just a cartel boss. He was a former Mexican Army Special Forces soldier, part of an elite group of highly trained military deserters who were recruited by the Gulf Cartel to be their enforcement arm. These men brought military discipline, military weapons, and military tactics into organized crime for the first time in Mexican history. Torres, Z14, was one of the architects of that machine. He helped design the structure, the violence, and the reach that eventually made Los Zetas powerful enough to break away from the Gulf Cartel entirely and become their own organization. He trained the men beneath him. He built the ranks. He was one of the reasons Los Zetas became the most feared criminal force in the country. On March 3, 2007, Torres was killed in Veracruz, following a dispute connected to a horse racing competition. The accounts that followed pointed consistently toward betrayal from within. Men he had personally trained, men he had trusted with his life, Men who decided his removal was worth more to them than his leadership. He built the organization. The organization finished him. Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, the man who built the entire modern Mexican drug trade from the ground up, is now sitting in a maximum security prison, blind in one eye, deaf in one ear, and has been locked inside a cell for over 35 years. Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, El Padrino, the Godfather, didn't just run a cartel, he invented the model that every cartel after him copied. In the 1980s, he built the Guadalajara cartel into the most powerful drug trafficking organization in Mexican history, controlling cocaine and marijuana routes across the entire U.S. border, and operating with such deep government protection that he conducted meetings openly, lived publicly, and moved freely across the country. The men who later became the most feared names in the drug war, the founders of the Sinaloa cartel, the Tijuana cartel, the Juarez cartel, all started under him. He was the original. Then in 1989, he was arrested for ordering the torture and murder of DEA agent Kiki Camarena. He has been inside ever since. A 2017 retrial added 37 more years to his sentence. His eyesight deteriorated in prison. His hearing went. His family publicly complained that he was being kept in dark, foul-smelling isolation cells with no exercise and no sunlight. The man who once controlled the entire drug geography of a nation now sits in Altiplano maximum security prison, unable to see the walls of the cell he has spent more than 3 decades inside.